Welcome to Fireside Chats with Pastor Judd.
And Pastor Kinah.
Thank you for joining us tonight. We are going to be jumping into episode number 17.
Oh.
And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that thought, there's no way there could be 17 episodes that come out of Revelation in the book of Daniel.
Well,
but we're not even done yet. Yeah.
Oh,
So last week in episode 16, we talked about two beasts.
yes, we did.
And in the chapter in Revelation chapter 13, and one of them, is this beast that comes out of the sand of the sea, and he's like a leopard, but he's got the feet of a bear, but he's got the mouth of a lion, and you can tell that he is the leader. And then you have this second beast come out of the earth that is kind of like his sidekick, it almost seems like, because he causes an image of this beast to be made animated, to come alive, and for people to worship it. And
It's like his agent.
a little bit. It's like, it's like his agent or his manager or both,
Yeah.
So anyway, at the end of that chapter, it talks about something that people are a lot more, or they think they're a lot more familiar with, and that is the mark of the beast.
Yes. Very familiar phrase. You can probably stop anybody on the street and say, do you know anything about the mark of the beast? And somebody will say 666.
Right. Like even people that never went to Sunday school, I mean, probably you could go to the middle of, the desert and stop a Bedouin just passing by and say, do you know the number of the mark of the beast? And he would say, what?
Because he doesn't speak English.
Because he doesn't speak English. Right.
Yeah.
So I've noticed that as the vaccine rolls out, and this actually happens every year when the flu vaccine rolls out.
Of course.
And I even have some of my coworkers that joke around like, don't do that, the government's tracking you. Like don't take that. And then, there's people, as soon as the COVID vaccine, started coming out, there's a lot of speculation about it because it happened so fast, which is miraculous, by the way. Like, it is amazing. All of these companies work together, and scientists and labs and things in order to get a virus, an antiviral, a vaccination that would actually work. And not only does it work, but it doesn't appear to turn people into zombies.
Most people.
Right.
Yes.
So, but I have also heard the speculation, like, I'm not going to get the vaccine because, and it's kind of vague, but you kind of get this,
It's like taking that mark.
Right. And so, anyway, so.
But nowhere in the Bible does it say anything about a mark in the shoulder.
Well, and that seems kind of significant, doesn't it?
Well, it does. It does.
And I will say this. I don't care what the vaccine is. You're not putting a needle in my forehead.
Well, and the thing is, as technology has advanced and as we have become more sophisticated in our techniques at doing things, one of the things that's been a very difficult thing for us in this age of modern technology is knowing beyond a shadow of a doubt, are you who you say you are? Because we spend so much time online, we're doing so much stuff over the internet, and
identification, like identity theft, is a huge thing now.
Well, for example, I filed my income tax today online. I e-filed,
okay,
and I had to prove to them who I was.
Wow.
Yes, and I will not go into the details of how I did that.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
When they said, who are you? Did you say, who do men say that I am?
That would have been a very biblical response.
But confusing to TurboTax.
But confusing, yes, very much confusing. It's just kind of an interesting thing that over the course of time, as our technology has increased, just think about this. Some years ago, they had not yet figured out that everybody has a different fingerprint.
A unique fingerprint.
A unique fingerprint. Didn't know that.
Right.
It took some technology for that to actually come about, for them to be able to identify that. And then as we progressed in technology even more, then they discovered that every human body has got a DNA signature. In fact, there are people that are in prison today that are being released because they were erroneously convicted of some kind of a sex crime some years ago, and on the basis of evidence that has now been disproved because of DNA.
Right.
And so,
which is amazing.
It is amazing, but it's also tragic when you see the number of people that were erroneously convicted. So all these things, but what's interesting is that the identification methods that have been used have been primarily to deal with the hand to begin with.
Right.
Okay.
And then, of course, scanning the iris.
And then, yes, retinal scan, unique to each individual body. Now, they've even gone further than that. I mean, they can map the blood vessels in the back of your hand, and those are unique. In fact,
really?
Yes, they are. They are. In fact,
but we are made by chance.
Yes, isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
But mine don't even match from the left hand to the right hand.
They look totally different.
You see, and I've never let my left hand know what my right hand was doing. And but that's the thing. These bodies of ours are so unique. But that's the thing. And so when we start talking about the mark of the beast, as was talked about in the end of chapter 13, here we are, and we have to keep in mind. Remind ourselves all the way through this Bible study that the admonition that was given, the instructions that were passed to John from God is in Revelation chapter 1 verse 19, write the things that thou hast seen, the things which are, and the things which shall be hereafter.
Right.
Okay. And then from that point, John begins to have these visions. He begins to have these visions, and he's writing them down, and he's having to write them down in terms of what he understands, of what he knows.
Right.
And so when we begin to read something like, let's say the last few verses there of chapter 13, and the scripture says, and he caused all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. And so
there's something about that sounds like the mark of the beast will be a sort of brand or sameness. In other words, my fingerprint can only belong to me. But if I belong to the beast, it's not going to be a different name on every forehead. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to be a different name on every hand.
We don't even know if it's going to be visible.
We don't even know if it's going to be visible. But what we do know...
Which brings us back to the vaccinations.
right. So, but it would seem as though...
We need to clear the air with that. Please, we are not telling you that the vaccinations for COVID-19 has anything to do with the mark of the beast, and we don't discourage anybody from being vaccinated.
He's got his, and I'm going to get mine whenever they let it happen. But but it does seem like it would be a mark of some kind that that would allow the people that work for the beast to immediately recognize if you belong to him or not.
But it might not be visible. It might be something
Right.
that has to be read technologically.
Right.
Okay. So, and we don't know. We don't know. And there again, too, I've always wondered what did John see
Yeah.
for him to write down what he wrote?
Right, right.
Okay?
Right.
And something that he saw, he interpreted that as being there was something
Yeah.
here or something here
Right.
that caused him to believe that there was a mark.
Right.
There was some kind of a mark.
And then it was important to know
Yes.
the number of his name.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there was something about it that he didn't, because he says, let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast. That's a weird way to phrase that.
Yeah.
Count the number of the beast.
Yeah.
For it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. So on some level, you know, what you get at least from this passage of Scripture, and it may reveal it more later on, but there is a numerical identifier
Seemingly so.
that you can count to.
There is something. Something about
Right.
a number. Something about a number.
But anyways,
And here's the thing. It's amazing how much the human imagination has run with this.
oh yeah,
And, you know, I remember years ago when I was first a Christian, and as a young person in church, we were doing a skit,
okay,
okay? And one of the parts in the skit was that of Satan.
okay,
And for us to identify him as Satan, you know, we thought about a lot of things. We thought about painting him red.
right,
We thought about tying a tail onto him with a sharp barb on the end.
right, neither of which are biblical, but okay,
Right, exactly.
right,
But we wanted people to know
Right.
this is the devil. Okay? And so we ended up putting 666 on his forehead. Now, I really don't think that you're going to be walking around and people are going to have that number written in bold red letters
right.
the way that we did in that particular production. It was quite effective.
Well, I'll tell you what, when I pull out my driver's license, it has an iridescent background to it. So when you look at it straight on, you don't necessarily see, you just see a little shininess. And it's just the state seal.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But, and they do that to keep it from being, you know,
Easily
duplicated or,
duplicated
you know,
yeah.
Forged.
Counterfeited, yes.
It doesn't seem like anything like that would be particularly difficult to do on a
No.
human being.
That's true. That's true. But notice that through the ages, something that many of us that weren't born in church, put it that way, and we spent a lot of time going in and out of clubs
Yeah,
and
man.
this kind of thing. And what do they want to do?
Stamp your hand.
Once
So
you
get in
have
and
paid, once you've paid your admission
Right.
fee, they're going to stamp your hand. And I have actually seen people saying, I don't feel comfortable with that. Because they had enough biblical knowledge
Right.
that they felt like there was something wrong with it.
Right. Like
And-
you know what, I'm going to go in this nightclub and I'm going to get soused and I'm going to go home with somebody else. But I draw the line at getting a handstand.
Yes.
That's
yes.
a bridge too far.
That's a bridge too far. Exactly. Well,
So, I mean, there's a lot of technology now, though, that
Well,
there
sure.
wasn't back
Yeah,
then. So
yeah.
easily, it could be something invisible, could be a chip, could be, shoot.
in fact, a lot of clubs started going with invisible ink that you had to stick your hand under
Right.
a blue light.
Yeah, because that permanent marker was no good. That was
Yeah,
that was kind of
yeah,
a pain, I
yeah.
would guess. I mean, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I'm sure I have no idea.
Well, And you know, when we talk about the mark of the beast, there are a few assumptions that we've made. Let me say logical assumptions that we have made. I've always believed that you wouldn't be tricked into it.
Correct. Yeah. It doesn't seem like that. This seems like a willful thing.
Yeah, it does. You would not do it in ignorance.
Right.
I think that you would know that what you were agreeing to, or at least in part.
Right.
And there seems to be an element there of, I guess, worship, because when we look at other scriptures that talk about this, let's for just a moment jump over into chapter 14. We're going to be looking at it some more in the next lesson or two. Anyway, and let's see. We are finding it, and even 9? Now.
You think verse 9 would be a good place? 9?
That would probably be a good place, yes. And the third angel followed them, saying, we're taking this out of context, yes, but we'll get the context after a while. The third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, and then the next verse goes and talks about the consequences of that.
Right.
But it seems to pair up the idea of worship of the beast, or worship of his image,
right,
or the taking of his number or his mark, all kind of is connected.
Yeah.
And so
right. It's like a special club.
Right.
In which you have to join, whether you're small or great, rich or poor, free or bond, you have to join the club, or you won't be able to buy or sell.
Exactly, exactly. Now, many of us that have been around as long as I have thought about that, the problem was going to be not being able to buy what you needed.
Right.
If you needed food, if you didn't take the mark, you couldn't buy food. You would starve to death. All of this. I had a precious great aunt that was very close to me, and she's passed on, been gone for a number of years. But she worked in a jewelry store. And she told me one time, when I was probably 15 or 16 years old, and we would sometimes have religious discussions. And she told me, she said, I have figured this thing out. And I said, and what is that, Aunt Ev? And she said, this thing of the mark of the beast and not being able to buy or sell. And she said, I know that some people are starting to hoard gold coins, thinking that will be something that will help them to be able to get what they need when the mark of the beast is imposed upon us. And see, she was feeling like, and that would have been 55 years ago, that she was going to see the day of the mark of the beast. And she said, but what I've started doing, because she said gold is heavy and it's bulky.
Baseball cards.
Well, close. Diamonds. She worked for a jeweler, and she started buying diamonds wholesale through her boss, and was putting them.
They probably thought she was dealing drugs.
Well, and she was putting them in a safety deposit box, and she was convinced that was the answer. That was how you avoid the issues of the mark of the beast.
So she's thinking about things from a very practical standpoint.
Yeah.
And you and I have had many discussions about, like, if God can't keep me through that, then why in the world am I trusting Him with my salvation?
Exactly, exactly.
Like-
And that is really the answer.
Yeah.
If we have to go through the things that this book is talking about,
Right.
then we're either going to have to trust God or get out of the game.
Right.
That's
Because
what it's
all the
about.
way up to this point in the New Testament, at no time did the Word of God say, you've got to be more self-sufficient. You are whiny and ridiculous.
Exactly.
You have got to learn to take care of yourself.
It was always trust me, lean on me,
Right.
let me do what
Yeah.
you can't do.
Right.
Let me meet your needs according to my riches and glory.
Right.
Those are the kind of things that we need to cling to,
Yeah.
knowing that He's promised to always be there
Yes.
and to always meet our needs. He said, lo, I'm with you always.
Yes.
And I think that means up high too.
Absolutely. Yeah, it does. But it is kind of interesting to see how we're getting to a point where we're seeing this move in the world towards cryptocurrency, because you can use the dollar, the petrodollar, the US dollar, you can use that and you can exchange it for anything, and the government doesn't necessarily know about it. You know what I mean? Like if you wanted to drive down to South Asheville and park in a shady part of Shiloh and wait for the guy to open his trunk, you could buy some firearms that don't have a history with cash. But now, what the governments have been trying to do for a long time, and they started this by saying, look, Mr. Douglas, we know that you have a few $1,000s in your checking account, but you can only have up to $2,999 of those dollars, or you're going to have to fill out a special form. Now, we know it's your money,
Oh, yeah.
but you have to fill out a special form. Not only that, but the government allows for police officers, if they stop you for any reason and you have a lot of cash, they can just take it.
I know it. That's why I don't carry money.
That's right.
Besides the fact that I don't have any to carry,
I
but
carry my debit card. So there is this move, and you're starting to see this with people shopping online, and even Amazon stores where you walk in, you fill up your buggy with whatever, and you walk out. And it automatically charges your account. It automatically charges your account for the same reason that my credit card company does not call me when I purchase something in another state, because it knows where I am.
that's right. They've got your number.
You hear me, Google? I know you know where I'm at.
That's right.
So as far as tracking things, the government has gotten very good at tracking, and the public has gotten very accustomed to using credit. And so it's not a very big leap from,
Yeah.
instead of tap and pay with your card, just leave.
Hey, and a lot of people are not carrying cash anymore.
No.
It's too easy with
It's-
a debit card
right.
or a credit card. It's so much easier. And honestly, the government wants to move completely away from cash
Absolutely.
into a digital currency,
Right.
and that's going to happen.
A cashless
It's
society.
already happening.
It is.
And,
all over the world, there are governments saying, hey, what can we, China is trying to move to a digital yuan, and the EU is trying to move to a digital currency. Deutsche Bank and a lot of those big European banks
Yeah.
are trying to slow the roll of a lot of the cryptocurrencies, because they're saying we don't want to put our stamp of approval on that because we think we want to come out with our own. And so when those things happen, you're looking at, a lot of people like Bitcoin because they say, well, it gives you, it means it has freedom of transaction. And it's like, well, no, you don't.
No,
You have anonymity. And that's not the same thing.
it's not the same thing.
The transaction is written literally in stone, and it's there for all time.
Yeah.
And so with cryptocurrency, you can't hide it. It's there.
Yeah. In fact, today, when I did my income tax,
Yes.
one of the questions was, have you bought or sold any cryptocurrency in the year 2020?
Right.
And, you know, the thing is, the government doesn't have any way of knowing whether I did or not.
Right. That's why they're asking.
That's why they're asking, but if I lie,
Right.
then I have committed a federal offense
Yes.
and can actually go to prison
Yes.
over just
nothing.
not declaring
Yeah.
something that might cost me $100 in income tax.
Right.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Crazy
isn't it?
world.
It is. That is the kind of world we're living
Yes,
in.
it
though.
is. And you know, talking about the crazy world we're living in, there are things that I think that used to we would have laughed because we would realize that's not even possible.
Right.
But now I think most people have gotten to the place where
Nothing
is impossible. And just some things that in the last 2 weeks that have come into my realm of thinking,
Yeah.
that have shocked me, that have kind of stretched my thinking a little bit. One of which is a new company that they're doing something that I would never have thought about it. They call it, I can't even hardly say it, they call it celebrity salami.
I hope this isn't going where I think it's going.
Celebrity salami. And basically, what this company is doing is they are getting famous people, or they're trying to, I suspect that some of them are a little resistant to do this, to give them a tissue sample from their body, and they take that tissue sample and they grow in a lab, they literally clone that tissue.
No.
And they grow meat from a tissue sample, which gives them the DNA of that particular celebrity, that person, that famous individual. And then they grow this meat, and then they take that meat and they mix it with some animal meat and make salami.
That is so freaking horrifying.
And
that is horrifying.
And the way that they are...
That's cannibalism.
Well, did you ever read Soylent Green?
I saw the movie, and all I can tell you is him running down the street, screaming, "It's people, it's people." It struck. I mean, I was only like 10 years old, and I was like, "Oh my God!"
I know it, but when we read the book and when we saw the movie, I read the book years before they made the movie, and the thing is, it was like in my imagination, I knew that somebody just made all this up because that would never happen.
Right, except that there's a company now.
Yes, making celebrity salami. But something else too, and this is not quite as shocking, at least for those of you that are in the middle of sitting there eating your evening meal and trying to watch this, you don't have to pause it again. But there is another company called eGenesis.
Okay.
And eGenesis is in the business of growing human organs. Okay? They are growing human organs for transplantation in the human body. A replacement kidney, a replacement liver, a replacement...
So that there would be a perfect match. So like I would grow, like from my own tissue, they would grow me a new organ.
Right. But they grow them in the bodies of animals.
Oh my God!
In the bodies of animals. Usually, the typical animal that they would use is a pig.
Right, because that's the closest to our. That's why they use.
They have less rejection of the organ that way. In fact, they made a new word for this. It's called xenotransplantation. Now, those kind of things are just showing you where, as a society, that we are heading. Now, in a related subject, there is a church in Jerusalem. It is a Catholic church. The name of that church is the Church of the Dormition.
Okay.
Okay? And they have a big church, and near there, just a little ways from that church building, they also own a guest house.
Okay.
When they have people that they bring, if the Pope comes to Jerusalem, he can stay in the guest house of the Church of Domitian. Now, about 10 years ago, if you've ever been in Israel, particularly in Jerusalem, in the old city, everything is so crowded. The little streets, the little narrow streets, and they're all paved, and you very seldom see a blade of grass because everything is paved over with stones, and so we know that underneath the city that is such an ancient city that it's just been built upon and built upon and built upon, and so they try to control any kind of excavation in the city.
Right, because they don't want artifacts to be discovered,
don't want them to be destroyed, and all that kind of stuff, But this Catholic church actually went down in their basement, and they excavated a tunnel that later on, and it's only been discovered in the last year or two that they did this. Now they were supposed to get a permit and approval, and it's a long process in Jerusalem to get approval for any of this, and they probably wouldn't have.
So they decided to do it and ask for forgiveness?
Right, and they actually never intended for anybody to know about it, okay? And they claimed it was a tunnel to connect their guest house with the church so that anyone in the guest house could get to the church without having to go through the crowded streets of Jerusalem. However, part of that tunnel passes through an area that accesses the basement levels of the building that is literally a museum, but in the lower levels of that museum is what is thought to be the grave and the remains of King David.
What?
This is, now, whether or not it's true, I don't know.
All right,
okay?
but what has the tunnel got to do with,
well,
you don't think that they dug a tunnel to steal things from a museum?
No, but what is thought to be the purpose is that with the approval of the Vatican, or possibly under the direction of the Vatican, they have dug this tunnel to access what they believe is the tomb of King David, because the technology now exists that if they can get one bone,
they can see if it actually is David?
They can grow a Messiah.
Come on!
They can grow a Messiah. Now, is that wild or what?
Why would you want to?
Well, because if they grow the Messiah, they can grow him like they want to. They can control him. It's a power thing. It's a power thing.
This is so creepy and weird.
Well, see, you don't understand the problems with a real Messiah. I mean, if Jesus Christ actually comes back to earth, he's going to know who are his and who is not.
Right. Yeah, he is. And that's a problem. That's a real problem. Yeah.
So it's a control thing. Now, I'm not making this up. I'm just telling you what exists and what they have done and what is thought to be their motives.
Wow.
Now, you know, I mean, I'd heard for the last several years that we have the technology that we can take a bone from a dinosaur and regrow dinosaurs.
Right.
I don't know how you feel about it. I'm not particularly wanting to step out my door and see a Tyrannosaurus Rex coming across the parking lot.
Well, and I'll tell you this, I'm not convinced that they put all them dinosaur bones together properly. And it's possible the T-Rex might have much longer arms.
Well, yeah.
And I don't want him to get me.
Yeah. And it's not going to be sufficient just to keep them on an island at Jurassic Park.
Right.
But I mean, you just think about that the whole thing of that. And so this is the world we're living in.
Right.
This is the time that we are part of. And so you think, well, it's just too far out to think about a mark of a beast and an Antichrist.
It's not. I mean, it is so not even.
Oh, they're going to fit right in.
I mean, there's already companies that chip their employees. There's already companies that chip their employees because it's easier than clocking in and clocking out.
Hey, there are schools now that are chipping their students so that when they go in the lunchroom, they can lay their hand in the scanner and they know that they're if their lunches are paid for or not.
And I'll confess that there's been on at least one occasion, maybe 1,000, where I've thought, I sure am tired of lugging this wallet with my ID and my concealed carry permit and all these credit cards and bank cards and my work credit cards and a little bit of cash, all these things. Boy, it sure would be easier.
Yeah.
If I didn't need pockets.
So you're going to take it?
No. No, I'm going to starve. So, do you have anything that you want to close this session with? Because we got kind of caught up in
we did, but I'll tell you, actually, I want to do a commercial.
Okay, all right.
Because it's going to be, this last week, we had a missions conference here at the church at Asheville.
It was awesome.
And the title of that missions conference was
Living with Purpose.
Living with Purpose.
In the Coming Storm.
In the Coming Storm.
Yeah.
Now, the whole thing was awesome. I want you to understand that. And if you are watching this on our Facebook page, or even on our
YouTube
channel, however you're accessing it, in a week or two, all of the sessions, I believe, of that missions conference are going to be posted.
Right.
Now, we're talking probably 8 hours of stuff.
Right.
But what I want you to understand is that something that you need to hear is the first session. Pastor Kinah did a session at the beginning. What was the title of your session? Did you have a title?
Yeah, it was actually The Coming Storm.
The Coming Storm.
Right.
Talking about what is coming our way. You need to hear that. You need to tune in and watch that. It'll be a little while before we get it posted. We're just a little bit behind, but that's okay. Right. We're going to catch up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
also, we'll be back with you next week for episode 18, where we will delve into chapter 14 of Revelation more thoroughly and start expounding on some of the things that are happening there. So for now, thank you for joining us. Hope you have a blessed week and have a good night.